What was written in the book of Revelations has become irrelevant. I'm here to tell you that it is inappropriate for you to embrace these, shall I say, New Age predictions of catastrophe, of land masses falling into the ocean of greater and greater danger. If your body is the visibility and the tangibility of your individuality, then all form must be the visibility and tangibility of God, and therefore incapable of reflecting anything unlike its source. Therefore, if what we would call the mass mind, or the accumulation of all these apparent limited egos, is losing its density, and if there is indeed a willing, more conscious embodying of one's divinity, then everyone's perception of the world is going to improve, and you are going to find the world manifesting more and more harmony, more and more perfection. The awakening means each one's coming into the clear conscious experience of who they really are, and the clear conscious experience of reality as it really is, and the awareness that it is all God, and it is all you. Not as though there are two separate things, God and you. But when I say it is all God, it is saying it is all you. But you will have the conscious experience of it from the infiniteness of God's point of view. You will not have the experience of it as a teeny viewer of it. Remember that you will either awaken as a result of willingness or as a result of suffering that has come from resistance to it, but the suffering isn't inherent in it. I am also here to tell you that you do not need to be afraid and you do not need to resist. And I am suggesting that you start practicing non-resistance with little things, and understand that the context in which you deal with the little things, and even the big things, which are really little things, the context of it is the kingdom of heaven. The context of it is that which you divinely are, which infinitely embraces the tininess of what you think you are. And as I said, that which is pushing you to let go is that which you divinely are. And when you let go, that which you let yourself go into is that which you divinely are. And you will come to see that the problem of being was a little bit of nonsense that seemed very real, that seemed to be going on in the middle of the kingdom of heaven. So do not be afraid of the end. The awakening process that is happening was and always has been known, and what was written in Revelations has become irrelevant. The details, the apocalypse as it were, because as a whole, those of the brotherhood who are dreaming that they are asleep are not being as resistant as was likely, and the awakening process is happening more rapidly and more gracefully. So you do not have to be afraid of the gnashing of teeth, the suffering, the catastrophes, etc. So when you hear these rumors, when you hear that you have to move inland so that you can have the oceanfront property in Idaho, do not energize it, and do not energize fear if you cannot leave California, or you cannot leave some place that is supposedly going to be devastated. The process of awakening, the process of experiencing clear mental awareness means that what you are going to see would be called healing, the harmonizing of anything that is seemed to identify in harmony. So do not feed into these suggestions with your fear. Do not even feed into them by saying, even if they are awful, I am going to embrace them because I know it means the end of everything unreal. Do not find any peculiar way of justifying in harmony. If healing meant that you were going to get worse, nobody would pray for healing. So the end is not frightful. There will be no Holocaust. There will not be an Armageddon. It could be said that AIDS is a pestilence that is part of Armageddon. It is not. The first healing of AIDS and every subsequent healing of AIDS will be as a result of the relinquishment of guilt by the individual experiencing AIDS. And once that is recognized and the healing occurs, and that one is able to share those he knows who are suffering from AIDS, that it was the relinquishment of guilt and the absolute evidence of no HIV viruses verified by physicians, it will be much easier for the next one to give up whatever guilt he is carrying or she is carrying with him or her. And this will demonstrate irrefutably that the body is the visibility and tangibility of the individuality, which is entirely mind. And that, therefore, that which is the visibility of mind must be entirely mental also. That is going to be the key factor in releasing everyone from this very solid conviction that they live in a material universe made up of substance that has nothing to do with the divine presence or spirit or God. It's time for that connection to be made. It's time for the realization to occur. This will be there is no adequate word for this, most significant discovery that will revolutionize existence, because it will promote with great rapidity the consummation of the process of awakening. So do not say that age is just one of the first steps of Armageddon, and do not fear. Do not imagine what it must be going to be like and frighten yourself with it. You see, you don't want to become sidetracked from staying on target. You don't want to be sidetracked from giving your attention to your center, your peace, that not knowing place where truth can reveal itself. And fear will always distract you. If you let it in and validate it, and then build it up with your imagination of the worst. There's a great deal of rejoicing at the most graceful way in which the last stage of awakening are unfolding, and there's much support for each one of you as you begin to embrace it and let it in and embody it. In other words, live out from that self-awareness and treat your brothers and sisters out from that awareness of your divinity that you experience as a fact. At the bottom line, all that needs to happen is for you to find a way to give yourself permission to let down your mask. And that is what I have been here to provide, the environment or opportunity in which you could let down your masks and have a different order of experience, not only of yourselves, but of what you are, at times a different order of experience of time. Not that time disappeared, but that it fluctuated, so that a long time seemed like a short time, and a short time seemed like a long time. When it begins to fluctuate, it becomes easier for you to see that it isn't real. I mean by that it isn't actually a measurable fact, just as your ego sense of yourself, which you think is so definite. When it begins to waver, and you have a different order of experience of love with each other, it makes it easier to see that your ego sense or your ego perception isn't really a fact. You see, when things begin to fluctuate, you know that the definiteness of a thing is coming apart. If you have been ill for a long period of time, and then you get better, and then you get worse, and then you get better, and then you get worse, and then you get better, and then you get worse, you know what that is saying. It isn't saying that you're doing something wrong, that maybe you weren't getting it right, but then you weren't, but then maybe you were, but then maybe you weren't. It means that the definiteness of the problem is no longer definite. It means the problem is breaking up. It means that you are not energizing enough to validate its consistency. And in the inconsistency, you have the proof that it isn't a fact. And that can provide you with the encouragement to go ahead and let go of it all of the way, because where you had thought it real, now its variability proves that it isn't. Lots of things are going to begin to be not as dependable as they were. And the point is, don't become frightened about it, because the only thing that can become variable is something that wasn't real, but which you thought it was. And if it's breaking up, then encourage its total dissolving. Because when it dissolves, what is real will be standing there and you will recognize it, and you will say, it's just like me. In other words, you will be able to recognize home. You will be able to recognize home, and you'll remember what you see when you see it. It will be like you, and you will be like it, because it is all what it really is. It is almost as though the veil will get moth holes in it, and you'll see through it. And you won't see through it, and you'll see through it, and you won't see through it. But in the process, you are having the increased ability to recognize the kingdom of heaven, to recognize what's real, and that is just like you, real. Many of you over the past years have known friends who have been having a real tough time, more so than a year ago, and many of you are some of those friends. I will tell you that this has been a year of cleansing, clearing out of garbage, and a lot of garbage has been your favorite garbage, If you are not careful, you will say it is circumstance out there that are responsible for my having to let go of some of my favorite garbage. Because you think your garbage is wonderful, beautiful stuff, and not garbage at all. Now, you can either say this is the beginning of the end in a negative way, or you can say it's the beginning of the end in a positive way. And you can begin to dare to take a look to see that it's really your very own integrity insinuating itself into your experience and uncovering what isn't of value for you. And therefore, you can anticipate, because it's not a negative force at work in your life, that there will be an end result of greater clarity, greater clarification of purpose, greater clarification of abundance. You know what your biggest problem is, that you wanted to be in charge of the change. Well, you, with a capital Y, are in charge of it. And that's why whatever your disastrous circumstances are or have been are really to your advantage. And so when things seem to be being taken away from you, when you seem to be deprived more and more of things you have been able to depend on instead of mourning its loss, I encourage you to see what this little hole in the veil of your perception has uncovered. Ask, what is being uncovered here? There is no evil. There is no devil. There is either clarity or unclarity, and unclarity begets unclarity, and unclarity substantiates itself, increases itself, and it seems to prove indeed that there is some negative force, but it is just a lack of clarity. So now you have nothing to blame all your problems on, and in fact I am stating to you that blame is a useless and irrelevant thing, even blaming yourself. Instead of saying, I must have done it, if nothing out of there did it, I'm responsible, it's my fault. Say, what is my capital B being uncovering here? Because there isn't a single thing that happens by chance. Many of you have decorated the veil with marvelously, intricately beautiful designs, creative artistry. You mean I've got to let go of that? And you're asking to hold on to the veil. Let it get moth-eaten. Let your wonderful creative design disappear so that you're not blind any longer. Don't be afraid of waking up. And as I have said before, don't distract yourself from your own emerging conscious experience of your divinity by waiting for me to come in the clouds to take you up. Let us say that I came in the clouds and came down and stayed with you. Well, then you'd be faced with having to go ahead and waking up because no one else is going to do it for you. You are the second coming, not me. You are the Christ who is to appear. And the time is at hand, and worst of all, it's happening. It is happening. Paul had the startling experience of finding his whole environment changed drastically in 6 hours. It was such a drastic change that it seemed not to be able to be embraced instantaneously. And you could say that there was a period that followed in which he became acclimatized or adjusted to the change. I want all of you to understand that your awakening will seem to occur in slow motion. Else there would seem to be a break in the constancy of your experience of identity. If it happened in a twinkling of an eye, it would be like being George this moment and Henry the next moment. And God knows who Henry is. That's the truth. God knows who Henry is, but Henry will not know who he is. And so there will seem to be a process to it in the sense of something occurring in time, and it will happen as rapidly as it can happen, and have you not lose a continuity of the experience of identity, even though your identity is changing from the ego perception, called personality, to the divine experience of individuality. It will happen as rapidly as it can without you losing your continuity, and the process is in the process at this instant, and everyone is chosen. So you no longer need to wonder if you're going to be left behind, while 144,000 are taken up in bliss. Everyone is involved. You are seeing the evidence of it around your globe in the radical changes in social order. And there is more to come. And it's not coming because of the exercise of power of government. It's happening because people are experiencing themselves deeply, and in the honesty of that experience they are saying, We want what is humane because we know what humaneness is, and it is now becoming more important to us than any ideology or teaching there is. And the very love that constitutes the actual substance of every single individuality is being embodied and changing social order and changing governments. It just seems as though you're on this journey by yourselves. And so it is.